This is Lab 10, Student List. In this lab, we are going to create a student class. A student class is going to have two instance variables, an int and a string. We're going to have a constructor which will set the default values. And finally, we're going to create getters and setters for both of the instance variables. We're going to have a student list class which will get information. We'll create two student objects, S1 and S2, and we're going to get student info from the user, and then we're going to print that information to the screen. Finally, a list runner class will have a main method, and in that main method, the only thing we're going to do is to create a single student list object. So this is the student class. The student class has a constructor. I have two instance variables, string, which is my name, and we have int my number. Both are private, so I can't access these from any other part of the program, but since these are declared between the class curly braces, they can be seen anywhere in this class. Inside the constructor, I'm not passing any parameters, but I am giving a default value to my name and to my number. The string empty gets loaded into my name, which is of type string, so that works, and 0 is going to be the default student number. Now I have getters and setters. Getters and setters are going to allow me to access and change these variables, my name and my number. Since they're private, I can't do that directly, but if I call a method called getName is going to return my name. So whatever variable, whatever value I have in the my name string, this method is going to return a string. The same thing for getNumber. getNumber returns my number. So whatever value I have loaded in my number, I return that int. Likewise, down here in setName, I'm not returning anything, but I receive in a name. So from another part of the program, if I call the method setName, I can send it a string, and that string gets loaded into my name. Likewise, I can go ahead and call this guy setNumber from another part of the program, and it will receive a number, which is an int, and that number, whatever I send in, is going to get loaded to my instance variable, my number. Okay, this is the student list class. In this class, I'm going to declare two student objects. Since I have the student class made, I can declare S1 and S2 as two instances of the student class. Each one is a student object, and so since these are declared up again below the class curly brace, they can be seen anywhere inside this class. In the constructor, again, I'm not sending any parameters, but I am creating a new S1 and S2 here. So the declaration up on top, and this is where I use the new operator with the parentheses to create that space in memory for each instance S1 and S2 of the student class. Now I'm going to write two methods. I'm going to write a print student info method and a get student info method. I'll call print student info twice, once before I load any information in, and then get student info is going to use a scanner to get information from the user. So I'll go ahead and print a line out to the top of the screen. Then I'm going to print out please enter student name 1. Notice I have a scanner here. Again, up in the top I have imported java.util.scanner so that when I create my scanner object SCR, this is a new object and Java knows what that is because I've imported the class. I'm going to print to the screen please enter student 1 name, and then S1 is the first student object, and I'm going to set the name, and inside set name I'm going to get the scanner object. Remember, scr.nextLine is going to wait at the keyboard for the person to type in a name, hit return. That method will call a string, and since setName receives a string as an input parameter, I'm going to send it whatever string the person inputs. The same thing now for student number, except instead of doing scr.nextLine, down here I've got scr.nextInt, and instead of going to s1.setName, I've got s1.setNumber. So my setters are going to receive first of all a string and then an integer, and it's going to load those into the S1 object or the instance variables inside of S1. I'm going to repeat that exact same process down here with S2. S2, I've got set name, I'm going to call the same scanner, but now I've got next line, and set number, now I've got next int, and that's going to allow me to get information from the user and put those names and numbers in my two student objects. Finally, down here in print student info, I'm going to print out the information student 1 name. This is an escape sequence called \T, which is simply going to print a tab. It's going to move the cursor over one tab length, so my output will be kind of even. and now I have S1 object. I'm going to say get name, and it's going to return that name string, and it's going to just embed that, or it's going to concatenate that into my print line statement right here. And the same thing over here for get number with this plus sign. It's simply going to add that. Notice I'm using tab, tab, and tab. This backslash means that I'm not going to be printing the letter T. It will actually be, those two characters go together and move my cursor over a tab's length, so everything will be nice and even. Okay, now I'm going to run the program. I should mention that as I come back over here, notice that after I make my student 1 and student 2, or S1 and S2 objects, I'm going to print the student info. And so upon creation, we know that these guys get loaded with some initial values, some default values, so I'll print those default values to the screen. Then I will get the student info, and then I will print the same info to the screen after I have loaded those variables. So let's go ahead and call this. So I will go to my student runner class, and I'm going to go ahead and run main. And now notice that I have student 1 name is empty and student 1 number is 0. Student 2 name is empty and student 2 number is also 0. So I'm going to put in a student name. Let's go ahead and make this real simple and say Bob, and I'll give Bob the number 123, and then hit return. And again, I get please enter student 2 name, and I'll say, let's say Sarah, and for Sarah I have 456. And if I hit enter one more time, I print. Now I see that student 1 and student 2 have different values. The instance variable my name for S1 is Bob, and the instance variable my name for student 2, or S2, is Sarah. Likewise, they have, each one has its own student number. Notice also that the output has these nice even spaces because I've used that \T, and that's it for Lab 10.